Welcome to today's Elite Explainer Masterclass. I am absolutely pumped to have you here. We are going completely immersive today, 100% English, because we've got a very specific, highly targeted goal. We are going to instantly elevate your EIKEN Grade 1 writing and speaking scores. How exactly? By mastering a curated list of 25 elite expressions. You see, examiners aren't just looking for candidates who know basic words. They want to see you wield high-level, nuanced vocabulary with absolute, surgical precision. So let's dive right in and unlock the language that's going to set you apart from every other test taker.
Here is our roadmap for today. We're breaking this down into 5 high-impact clusters: medical precision, disaster and recovery, ego and scandal, power and conflict, and business dilemmas, before we wrap it all up with a final challenge. All right, let's kick things off with Cluster 1, medical precision and strategic focus.
So, examiners absolutely love it when you use surgical, highly precise imagery to describe abstract social or business problems. It really shows off a deep mastery of metaphorical English. Take the word incision, for example. It comes from the Latin incidere, which literally means to cut into. But it's not just some random cut. It's a deliberate professional slice. Next up is squint, which visually captures that act of narrowing your eyes to filter out glaring light so you can capture the tiny details. Then we have zero in on. Listen, this is a total killer phrase for your essays. When you need to talk about cutting through all the noise to find the actual root of a problem, you say, we must zero in on it. Jeopardy brings this heavy, heavy emotional weight. It comes from a French phrase meaning an even game, basically representing the absolute brink of ruin. And finally, extol, which means lifting someone's achievements up to the absolute highest level.
Just listen to the rhythm and the professional tone when we drop these into context. The surgeon made a precise incision. She had to squint in the bright sunlight. We must zero in on the core issue. The sudden cuts put the project in jeopardy. Critics extol the director's latest masterpiece. Throwing out a phrase like put the project in jeopardy or zero in on the core issue during your EIKEN interview instantly signals to the examiner that you've got some seriously advanced grammatical weapons in your arsenal.
Let's tie this together with our first memory lock story. Notice how this builds a really vivid narrative. To make a precise incision into the problem, the engineers had to squint under the harsh lights, successfully zeroing in on the root cause to save the project from jeopardy, an achievement the critics highly extolled. By weaving these words into a high-level professional scenario, your brain naturally locks in the context. You're not just memorizing a list of definitions, you're actually learning how they interact with each other. Moving right along to Cluster 2, Disaster and Unshakable Recovery. Natural disasters and infrastructure failures pop up all the time in the EIKEN Grade 1 exam, and you need vocabulary that matches the sheer gravity of those situations. Demolition isn't an accident, right? It's the intentional taking down of a huge structure or system. Then wreckage gives us that brutal physical aftermath. But pay really close attention to this next word, fraught. This word is heavily loaded, kind of like a cargo ship, but strictly with negativity and tension. You literally cannot use it in a positive way. A situation is fraught with danger. We contrast that with cohesive, which means sticking together almost on a molecular level, and modicum, which is just the absolute smallest sliver of something required, like asking for a modicum of respect. Let's hear how these words instantly level up a standard sentence. The building's demolition was broadcast nationwide. Now, notice phrase number 2. The site contained a mammoth amount of wreckage. That specific combination, mammoth amount of wreckage, paints an incredibly vivid, high-scoring mental image for whoever is grading you. The atmosphere was fraught with intense tension. A cohesive team can easily withstand external pressure. Even a modicum of error is unacceptable here. These are the exact types of sentences that take an essay from just good to truly elite. And here is our summary story for Cluster 2. Following the scheduled demolition, the site was filled with wreckage and the air was fraught with danger, yet the highly cohesive team finished the job without a modicum of error. The contrast going on here is incredibly powerful. Pitting a situation that is fraught with danger right against a highly cohesive team creates a highly persuasive and compelling argument for any essay dealing with crisis management. Up next, we have Cluster 3, Ego, Scandal, and Truth. Okay, this cluster is your absolute secret weapon for writing about political scandals and the loss of societal trust. Think about the literal physical posturing of strutting, walking with this arrogant, puffed-out chest. Now contrast that immediately with dispirited. The prefix dis means to take away, so the spirit has been completely drained from the citizens.
When chaos erupts from this, diplomats have to come in and smooth down the friction. And if they're caught in a lie, a politician might stammer in anxious, broken speech before finally having no choice but to own up to their failures, which means to step up and admit full responsibility.
Let's check out the cadence of these phrases. The leader strutted past critical journalists without answering questions. Dispirited citizens lost all remaining faith in the administration. Now look closely at number 3. Diplomats tried to smooth down escalating international tensions. Carefully, I can practically guarantee you smooth down international tensions is a massive score booster for any diplomatic or geopolitical essay prompt. Then we've got the embarrassed politician stammered a hasty apology for his scandal, and the firm finally owned up to its critical strategic mistakes.
Watch how perfectly this narrative arc mirrors a real-world political scandal. The arrogant politician tried to strut past the press, leaving the public entirely dispirited. While diplomats rushed to smooth down the outrage, the leader finally stammered a weak apology and owned up to his massive failures. I mean, you can almost see this playing out on the evening news, right? Connecting physical actions like strutting to psychological states like being dispirited is just a masterclass in descriptive English.
All right, shifting gears to Cluster 4, Power, Conflict, and Ultimate Victory.
If you draw an EIKEN question related to global conflicts or human rights, these are the 5 words you absolutely need in your back pocket. We start with militia, an unofficial armed citizen group that often challenges regular forces. They might attack an imposing structure, something with an overwhelming, truly intimidating presence. Now, I want you to dive deep into this next phrase with me. Bear the brunt of. This means taking the absolute heaviest blow. You should absolutely be using this to describe vulnerable populations in your socioeconomic essays. For instance, the poorest citizens bear the brunt of the inflation. We also have tower over, meaning to dwarf others, and finally, prevail, which is that ultimate victory over adversity. Feel the gravity in these sentences. The armed militia challenged the government forces. The headquarters was an imposing structure. Civilians bear the brunt of armed conflict. Skyscrapers tower over the historical landmarks. And take a good look at sentence 5. Democracy will ultimately prevail over authoritarianism. That structure right there, that functions as a flawless, incredibly powerful concluding thought for your essays. It just leaves the examiner with such a strong, resounding message. Let's look at the integrated story here. The armed militia seized the imposing fortress, forcing innocent civilians to bear the brunt of the violence. But as modern ideals tower over the old ways, the people believe justice will ultimately prevail. By connecting these high-level concepts, moving from the physical violence of a militia all the way to the abstract victory of justice, you are proving true, undeniable English fluency to an examiner. Finally, we arrive at Cluster 5, Business Dilemmas and Executive Decisions. Technology and corporate governance are total staples of this exam, and you need to sound like a seasoned executive when you're discussing them. We start with an outage, like a sudden death of systems or a blackout. When this happens, leaders face a dilemma where they're trapped between 2 terrible choices. Often, this whole mess is caused by slack, a really dangerous loss of tension or discipline in management. Now look at delegate A to B. Etymologically, this implies a formal, official transfer of power from an authority figure to a subordinate. It's not just lazily passing off your work because you don't want to do it. It's a strategic move. And finally, firm up, which means taking a fluid, maybe weak idea and solidifying it into a concrete plan. Notice the super professional tone going on here. The power outage occurred following the earthquake. The mayor faced a dilemma regarding military assistance. The Slack volunteers delayed the disaster recovery process. The authority delegated the reconstruction work to contractors. Officials firmed up a plan following the disaster. I strongly urge you to use the phrase firm up a plan when you are proposing solutions in your essay's final paragraphs. It shows decisive, action-oriented thinking. Let's cement this final cluster into your active vocabulary with our last corporate crisis story. Following a massive system outage, the CEO faced a terrible dilemma caused by Slack management. Ultimately, she chose to delegate the recovery to experts to firm up their security protocols. And just like that, you've got 25 elite expressions permanently locked into your memory, ready to be deployed on exam day. And that brings us to the final EIKEN challenge.
Learning the vocabulary is honestly only half the battle. Now you actually have to apply it. So here is an ICANN-style prompt using the vocabulary we covered today. Agree or disagree, a cohesive society is the only way for a nation to prevail over the jeopardy of modern economic outages. Look at that prompt. We've stacked it with cohesive, prevail, jeopardy, and outages. So here is my challenge to you. Write your absolute best opening or concluding paragraph to this prompt in the comments below, and make sure you use at least 3 words from today's Explainer Masterclass. I seriously can't wait to read your brilliant arguments. Keep practicing, keep refining your precision, and you are going to absolutely dominate this exam. Until next time, stay focused and keep learning.